Hi everyone, this is Eden of LightCycleAstrology.com. Welcome back to the channel, friends, and to new people tuning in. Today we are doing Mantic Monday episode number 24, taking a look at the astrology for this week ahead between February the 19th and the 25th, 2024. This week is all about the Venus-Mars conjunction that is happening in the sign of Aquarius, forming a square to Jupiter. So that's a pretty auspicious aspect, but of course we also have the Sun and Mercury moving into the sign of Pisces this week. So happy birthday, Pisces. And we are also getting a full moon in Virgo that is happening this week. So we have a lot of astrology to cover. We'll get into the timing of the aspects that is coming through for us this week. And then we'll talk about 6 themes that I see for the week, or 6 ways in which the archetypes may appear. Of course, there are almost an infinite amount of ways that you could experience any one transit in the sky. And that largely has to do with your birth chart context in terms of what is promised in your birth chart. If you have some real Mars, Venus kinds of things in your birth chart, this may be a week where you really notice some of the astrology that's taking place between Venus and Mars. If you don't, sometimes the astrology of the week can be a little bit more quiet. But in any case, we will take a look at 6 themes that I have that I think are probably going to be the ones that stand out for the most people. So we'll get into that here in a moment. Before we do, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all of that. It helps the channel to grow. I love to get the comments in the comment section, especially if you notice something in particular that we're talking about. Those are always really great to see how the astrology actually resonates or appears for people watching the content of the channel. And you can always go to LightCycleAstrology.com if you want to get a reading from me. Okay, well, let's go ahead now and we'll pull up the chart wheel here. And we'll begin the week, February the 19th. I have the real-time clock set to London, so this is convertible from this very central time. But sometime around Monday, what is going to be starting the week off is the Sun enters Pisces. So happy birthday, Pisces. For me personally, I'll just share this. This is a really interesting week for me because my partner, Kate, has really similar astrology to a lot of the configurations that are coming through for us. So it was kind of an interesting journey for me to kind of think about some of the archetypal themes that may appear. You know, each week I sort of sit down and I research or plan out, or just sometimes just think, you know, kind of turn over the soil in my mind about what I know about particular archetypes or things like that. And I found myself sort of almost going through the same process. And then at some point during the week, it occurred to me, I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to try to theorize about what some of these combinations could be speaking to this week, because I'm in a relationship and have known for a while now, somebody very close to me that has a lot of the same configurations. So, that is really interesting. So a lot of these are coming from my personal observations of somebody that is very near and dear to me, my partner. So, but the Sun enters Pisces. So we get that very, empathetic, watery. When the Sun is in Pisces, you often see people that resonate with a kind of talent or life purpose that resonates for them, that is often having a connection with the collective, and can be very empathetic or sensitive, emotional, all of those kinds of things. So it's a very beautiful place to have the Sun. And there is that Jupiter ruled aspect of the Sun, where the Sun is filtering through Jupiter's essence and basically is kind of getting at things that are having those Jupiter archetypal moments where there may be something centered around things that bring cohesion or harmony or order, things that are generous or positive, kind of like the glass is half full kind of perspective is something that you always see or tends to really show up with people that have strong Pisces placements, especially like the sun, rising or moon in Pisces. And at times there can be themes where there seems to be a drive towards salvation or redemption. And that is because Pisces season is the last month of the winter season, which will herald the time of the spring equinox when the sun in 30 days crosses over that boundary. And then we get the light half of the year that is now victorious or taking over from the dark half of the year. So Pisces often see the coming victory of light as things that will be saved or redeemed or brought back to some kind of order or peace or justice or something like that. So those, of course, are all themes that we can see with the sun in Pisces. Now, we are marching towards a Sun-Saturn conjunction that doesn't really kick into full effect this week. We might feel a little bit of that by the end of the week, but that's really more for next week. So we'll get into what that means for next week. But we have on Monday this happening with the sun entering Pisces. And then on Thursday, we have Venus conjoins or makes a bodily union in ancient astrology speak to Mars. So we'll take the clock forward. Here it is. Now, this is right around, let's just call it 7:30 a.m. GMT time, London time, in other words, where you have Venus at 6 degrees and 58 minutes, and then we have Mars at 6 degrees, 58 minutes. And you can see that both Venus and Mars, they, by this point, have now separated beyond those 3 degrees that we saw them passing into Aquarius and passing over Pluto at the end of last week. Now, at the beginning of this week, though, if I just roll back, let's say, Monday, we have Venus at 3 degrees and 16 change. And then by Tuesday, we have Venus at 4 degrees. Mars is already at 5. So this week does begin with a little bit of that Venus-Pluto kind of energy, but it's fading pretty rapidly. And then by the time the two planets actually conjoin to make a bodily union, as it was called in ancient astrology, by Thursday, it's really more about the Venus-Mars archetype. But what is really interesting, of course, is that you'll see that these two planets are at 7 degrees, and that is beginning to form a square with Jupiter here over in Taurus at 10 degrees. So we're giving this about a 3-degree range of engagement where there's still, 3 degrees before the perfection. But that is something that begins to move into the realm of maybe the fruit beginning to become ripe on the tree, as it were, as a sort of a metaphor for planets when they're getting into an engagement range with other planets. So you may see or notice things that are beginning to come up thematically with both, for sure, Venus and Mars conjoining in Aquarius, but then also pulling in that Jupiterian kind of energy as well, or symbolism as well. So that is really interesting. And then if we roll the real-time clock forward to, so I just have labels for this, but Thursday, Venus squares Jupiter, moving into that 3-degree range of engagement with Jupiter. Also Thursday, Mars does the same thing, but they're doing it a little bit one after the other kind of a thing. Now by Friday, though, we are getting Mercury following the sun into Pisces. Now, this is really important. We do get this, of course, once a year whenever we're somewhere around, Pisces season or Aries season, depending on where Mercury is, whether Mercury is ahead of the sun. But, Mercury, of course, never really gets that far away from the sun. So Mercury is always in the neighborhood around the sun. And so we get Mercury in Pisces once a year, roughly around the springtime-ish or the end of winter. And this is standing out a bit more this year because we are also getting a full moon. So let's just pull the time forward here to the time of the full moon, which is happening on Saturday, the next day. And let me just roll the time forward by hours to get the exact full moon, coming right around 5-ish degrees of Virgo. So there's the full moon in 5 degrees of Virgo, opposing the sun at 5 degrees of Pisces. And then here is Mercury. So we're going to sort of take this whole full moon astrological archetypal dimension along with Mercury in combination, because Mercury is the dispositor or dispositor or ruler or host of this full moon that is happening in Mercury's temple of Virgo. So that's really interesting because Mercury, who is hosting the Virgo full moon, is not in great shape, right? We have, by ancient standards, we have Mercury in a place that is opposite to one of its temples, which is called detriment, or some people refer to it as like contrariety. But a planet positioned in an opposite sign to one of its ruling signs is kind of thought of like it's like a visitor in a foreign land that is almost as far away from its home as it could possibly get, right? It's like 180 degrees away from one of its temples. So it's like it can't get any further away from its own place that it feels natural in. If it gets any further away, it starts coming back again. So these oppositional places to a planet's temple or sign are real interesting places, because when you are imagining that, let's say that you're like in a foreign land, you may have a really hard time feeling like you fit in. And this sort of brings you back to almost like the high school motif, where there's all of these cliques and there's people that fit in, and then it's real common for people, of course, in high school or even in college or in elementary school for that matter, to find the places that they fit in. So when planets are in signs opposite to their own natural signs, there can be kind of that excitement, but it comes along with a tension of maybe feeling almost like a loner or an outsider, or, maybe even like a rebel, somebody that pushes the boundaries or something like that. So this is Mercury potentially pushing the boundaries, being a rebel, doing those kind of outsider things. And you'll notice that, of course, Saturn in the sign of Pisces, Saturn is the archetypal outsider rebel kind of, emblem here that is co-present with Mercury. So you get kind of a confluence of this outsider theme with Saturn there as well. But not only is Mercury in its opposite temple, but of course, in ancient astrology, Mercury's depression or fall was said to be in the sign of Pisces. And there are different texts that describe or explain why that is. Essentially, the way that I would summarize what the ancient authors, the reason why they designated Mercury's depression place to be this sign is because Mercury is a god of rationality. And Pisces is a place where Venus was said to be exalted or lifted up. So we have Mercury things sort of brought down low and Venus things brought up high. And the two are sort of different aspects of, of ways in which we can experience life, right? And one of them is this very rational, mental, in your head kind of quality, while the other is definitely more somatic, in the body. It's the sensation, it's the sense body. And, a lot of times those two things are diametrically opposed, where if you are like, take for instance, this is my tried and true example to share with you guys, but, imagine that there's an intimate scene happening, maybe with a potential new lover or something like that. And we've all had those moments where it's awkward because maybe we're too much in our head. We have anxiety or something like that. And it's awkward, and it doesn't match the situation. It doesn't feel good because the point of intimacy on that level is to be feeling it in the body and connecting somatically with your partner at that moment, right? It's not to be in your head. In fact, that can be a real turnoff. So Mercury things, those heady kinds of things, can be brought down low. Now, that's not to say that Mercury in Pisces is all bad. Mercury in Pisces has a real talent for tapping into somatic, sensational things and being able to bring those into articulation that is more artistic, say. So it's the painter that is really clever at mixing colors or being able to really tune into those artistic wavelengths. So it's not all bad, but it's just to say that Mercury's nature is somehow not completely functional how it normally prefers to be, where it's just this really analytical kind of way, right? It's sort of working in the realm of feelings and emotions, and those tend to be a little bit more challenging for those purely Mercury archetypal things. Now, one interesting thing is that Mercury can also represent the exchange within markets or money or currency or something like that. Okay, and then the third thing, or the third way in which Mercury is sort of kind of down on his luck, he's in the sign of his he's in an opposite sign in the sign of his contrariety or detriment. He's depressed. He's also, you'll notice, very close to the sun, which means that he's invisible and under the beams. So this Mercury was said to be under the beams is at a time where the ancients said it was burnt up. I'll just read you this flashcard that I have, which is sort of the things, the ways in which that I sort of keep track of all these things. But the ancient authors would describe this as burnt up. That's the description that they use over and over again. And while it's beginning to enter the rays, it is said to be undertaken, is promised to be burned. And while it is connected within the rays, while it is concealed within the rays, it is called oppressed. So Mercury is oppressed or burnt up. And we'll talk about themes to that here in a moment. But there is the timing of what is coming through for us this week and some of the aspects that are shaping up. Now, let's get into the archetypal themes to watch for. So I have come up with 6 today, 6 ways the archetypes may appear, or 6 themes, you might say. Okay, theme number 1 is going to be offered a beautiful thorny rose. I really like this one. You know, when you think about winter and you think about Venus and Mars, these planets that are passionate, but they are in this Saturn-ruled Aquarian sign that is a sign of winter. And I don't know, maybe just because I watched this new addition to the Hunger Games, and it was all about young President Snow. And I remember that Snow's sort of calling card, if you will, or his symbol was that white rose, right? And so for me, the white rose that has the thorns on it is the perfect Venus-Mars symbol when Venus and Mars are coming together in the sign of Aquarius. It's the winter, so it's kind of that white rose, but roses are beautiful, right? They are also thorny, so they have that beauty that is coming along with the protection or the defense of the thorn. So I really love this imagery for an archetypal theme, or an archetype that appears as symbolically kind of connected to this white rose that has the thorns. But now, Venus and Mars conjoining in Aquarius are also forming that square to Jupiter. Jupiter is ahead in zodiacal order in the sign of Taurus. So we might think of Jupiter as representing something that is already right now current the way things are currently. So if Jupiter is this planet that represents things that are growing well, or um, things that represent positive growth or abundance or something like that, that is already um, representing the places that are going well, or that are developing nicely, or that are bringing prosperity, abundance, wealth, something like that, right? Jupiter and Taurus. Um, that's really interesting. It makes me wonder if one of the themes could be that Jupiter represents that which is growing well, and Venus conjunct Mars represents something coming along, right? The conjunction, something that's being born, that offers a new enticing prospect, or like a vantage point, or a perspective, or a desire that carries with it both attractiveness, or like an attraction towards something, but also risk, danger, or challenge, those thorns that are coming along with the rose. The rose symbolism is a mixture of beauty and protection. So, for instance, an example might be something like, well, my job's really going well, but I'm offered this enticing new, I don't know, position that, my boss might say, hey, this is coming up, and, you might be a good person to step into this role. And it may disrupt what is already going well for you. But there may be some way in which it's like, oh, maybe there's more money that comes along with it, or maybe there's something that's more attractive, and it sort of breaks open your head a little bit, and you sort of see there's a new prospect or a vantage point that comes along that wasn't there before, and that conjunction of Venus and Mars sort of represents something maybe fortuitous, and something that is giving you or offering you like a new desire, that it's like, oh my gosh, here's this thing that I could have now. So it could be, in love, relationship. It's very social. Of course, we're talking about a planet that is romantic, Venus. And Mars is also there in the mix. So there may be coming along with it the thorn on the stem, right? That may represent a kind of risk. Well, I could take this new position at work, but I don't know, maybe it would be challenging, or I'd have to figure out how to do it, or I'm not sure if it would work out, or there's some risk or danger, or maybe it's just hard. Maybe you can have something you never had, but it comes at, it's coming at a cost that is going to be really difficult in some way. So that is my theme number one, is sort of the being offered a beautiful but thorny rose. Okay, and theme number two is going to be red rover, send fortune on over. So of course, again, we have Venus conjunct Mars, and they're making that square to Jupiter, a planet of fortune. And Venus herself was said to be, a benefic, a fortunate planet. So, but this is really coming out of the fact that Venus and Mars are in this Saturn Aquarius sign. And Aquarius has this real motif around it about how popular cliques or groups or factions of people, right? It's like this collective sign that has this real innate understanding of like, okay, this group of people is individuated as a group or a clique over here, and this is what they represent, this is what they're all about, this is what they like, but this group over here is different, or doesn't get along with this group over here. Aquarius is really, really good at understanding the collective social dynamics of cliques, groups, factions, political parties, ideologies that all sort of are part of, humanity writ large. But, it's almost like a kind of a political sign from that sense. But that game you played when you were a child, and there were those two teams, right? And you were out, this is what I remember anyway, you're out on the field, and you're sort of in one row of children that are facing off against the other row of children. And of course, the object of this game is to figure out who on the other team is advantageous for you to pick. And you could either pick somebody that might benefit you in a negative way, like no, you always pick somebody that is going to bring something to you that is advantageous. So, but what I mean by negative, I meant like you could pick somebody that is weak and is not going to be able to break through your ranks, and then maybe you capture them. Or you can, that's sort of the object, right? Or you can pick somebody that is really strong, and it can be like a challenge and sort of fun. But in either case, Jupiter sort of represents that what could be advantageous for me that I could select. And it's like you're like you understand the factions and the groups and the social dynamics, and you're really good about understanding that with Venus and Mars in Aquarius. But with Jupiter there, it's like there's a chance to win people over to your cause or your project. It almost reminds me of like a Washington, D.C. Like fundraising party, right? Where there's like somebody who's really talented at being able to read the room, being able to mingle among the different groups of like interest groups or something like that. And you're agreeable to many different collectives of people who have their own encampments or ideologies. And this collective appeal to a wide range of cliques or factions is like this image of a Washington, D.C. charity fundraising party, for instance, where agreeableness and grace are popular skills that garner you support or win people over to your cause. And it's almost like you're able to maybe there's some benefit. So I don't want to say the word opportunistic, but it is kind of opportunistic. It's like, there's a real talent for understanding where people are, and being able to meet them there and go, oh yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I understand your perspective, and having that grace and social charm that comes along with Venus in this Saturn Aquarius sign. With Mars there, it's like, is there some way that you're able to sort of take action, or there's motivation to do something about it? So it's like, well, I really want to, I've always wanted to make a GoFundMe, page and get this project off the ground, but I need people to help me out. I need allies or benefactors to sort of, be doing it along with me. This is a great time for all of that. It's like the fundraiser party almost aspect, where it's like it has those political grace and skills around talent to read the room and be able to meet everybody where they are in their own heads. Having the Mars there in the mix, being able to sort of get motivated and bring things into a form of action. And then it has that Jupiter square that is joining the party, that's being able to sort of like Red Rover, like send this fortunate person who is going to help me out, or may be able to provide support in this way for me on over. So that is what I see for theme number 2. Okay, theme number 3 is going to be putting up with BS. Now, this obviously is kind of a negative one, because most people think, well, I shouldn't have to put up with BS. But one thing that I have personally noticed with Venus in Aquarius, and we are talking about Venus and Mars coming together. So first of all, the symbolism of Venus and Mars in a conjunction, one way you could view that is as like a matriculation of both challenging things that are coming along with like likable things that may have something to do with like relational circumstances. So for instance, Venus Mars in Aquarius can be a symbol for Venus putting up with challenging things, maybe difficult situations, or at worst, maybe even abusive things that are happening around you, right? And Venus is really... Venus has so much patience in Aquarius to put up with conflict, challenge, misfortune, even abuse, right? Venus in Aquarius has, and sometimes this is really nice, because it's nice when you can put up with something that like if you just fly off the handle and at the smallest of things, and there's no ability to sort of just kind of have patience and understanding to get over something that's challenging, right? That's often not so great, because it's like you want to be able to have some grit and tenacity to overcome the little things, right? It's like that saying, it's the little things in life that don't matter so much, because they're always around and you always need to sort of deal with them. But Venus in Aquarius can almost do that to a fault, where even sometimes the big things that are challenging or misfortunate or even abusive there's a tenacity around being able to really like just sort of be the one that wants to soothe the cut or the heel, or being the one that wants to calm down a partner who's raging out or something like that. So both good and bad with this one, but there is kind of this theme of being able to put up with BS a lot more with Venus in the sign of Aquarius. And then this Venus-Mars conjunction indicates that there may be a theme around the matriculation of both challenging things that are coming along with romantic things or social things or desirable things or something like that, right? You're getting the good with the bad kind of a thing. Like, oh, I really love my partner, but at the same time, I don't know, this person's also really difficult in some ways. And I sort of just find myself kind of putting up with it and acquiescing to it and just sort of taking it as it comes, or, not reacting to it because that just seems to be the easier way out right now, or something along those lines. And of course, it doesn't have to be romantic, but it could have to do with something socially or something relationally or something like that. So that is theme number 3. Theme number 4 is going to be the casual lover motif. I love this one. This one is so fun because the casual lover motif is sort of like, how people say, like, I low key sort of want this. I heard this in a movie where somebody was saying, I low key want a dog right now. I forget which movie this was, but and I don't actually watch a lot of TV, you guys. I know I'm always bringing up movie references, but I find that movies have they're kind of like the high art form of our time, because they bring in theater with music, with of course great writing and all of those things, right? So I feel like movies are really great mediums to draw from archetypal symbolism from. But anyway, I low-key sort of want this. That is really, really Venus, Mars in Aquarius to a T. When you desire in a more casual or detached way, that's Venus and Mars in Aquarius. When you find yourself being more cerebral, like a sapiosexual, somebody that gets turned on by the more mental, airy qualities of Aquarius. But also, this is a Saturn-ruled sign that can be unconventional, out of the box, quirky, taboo, or experimental. So imagine the planets that are called the lovers, Venus and Mars, getting together in this sign, and there's somehow this quirky, taboo, experimental, sexual nature that is kind of mental and cerebral, unconventional, maybe a little bit weird or out of the box, and very, very, very experimental. This is a kind of Venus and Mars that could experiment with different kinds of relationships, different go on dates with people that are, unusual for their normal dating, the people that they normally date, or their normal dating profile is changed or something like that. But it's casual. This is the interesting thing about this. It's casual because Venus and Mars are like, you could almost see it as like the embers of or the coals in a fire, that there's passion there. Venus is desirable there. Mars is lust there. But these are turned down a lot more because this is a Saturn sign, and Saturn is often detached, or outside of the norm. There's where you get the detached or taboo, but also very experimental, kind of interested, and almost like the scientist, right? The science that relates to Aquarius, that sort of motif that usually comes in with Aquarian kinds of things. So you get like, I'm going to experiment with this kind of relationship or this kind of thing that I'm interested in, but it's casual because Saturn is slow. Saturn is cool. Saturn is detached. Saturn is like other or outside. And this is a winter time sign. So it's not that those fires of passion aren't like raging in Aquarius, right? They're more casual. So I sort of low key want this as kind of one of the themes that you could see here. And theme number 5 is kind of going off of theme number 4 in the same way that it sort of fleshes this idea out, where it's like to be social or not to be social. Again, going back to Aquarius, a Saturn-ruled sign that is often sort of understanding cliques or groups of people, understanding the collective. It's this cool popularity and distance independence that happens all at the same time. The cool popularity is Venus in a Saturn sign that has an uncanny way of tapping into what is popular on a collective level, and is almost like a DJ, who is up there playing all of the popular music for the crowd, right? It's sort of like that cool guy that's up there and he's spinning records and being the DJ, but all at the same time, he's somehow other from the crowd, but he's also kind of there among the crowd or near the crowd. That's very, very, very Venus Mars in Aquarius. I'm social, but I'm not totally here. I don't have both feet fully in what is happening socially. That's Venus and Mars in Aquarius, right? It's that Saturn aloofness almost. I'm here, I'm cool, I'm the DJ, I'm doing something, I'm part of it, but I'm also somehow detached. I may be in another room. I came here with the party, but where are you now? I don't know. You're just somebody that is gone, or it has this real contradiction of social dynamism to it. I would say it's hard to totally describe, but it's like, that's why I chose the DJ metaphors, because it's like you're there, but you're not one of the people raving in the crowd listening to the music. You're the cool person that's a little bit connected, but also a little bit separated. So I call this to be social or not to be social, because it's like you sort of, that's the tension with Venus conjunct Mars in Aquarius. I think it's like, I do want to go to this thing with my friends or with everybody, but I could just as well just be by myself. Mars in a Saturn sign. Mars is independent. Saturn is an outsider. I could sort of be independent as an outsider. But then I'm with Venus. So I do like social things. I do like to, to share these ideas and see what the collective is up to and all of that. So it's kind of this interesting contradiction of social dynamism that you get with Venus in Mars's temple here. Okay. And lastly, let's get into one that centers around the full moon, which I'm calling attempting perfection, but burning the execution. This one I really like because we have, let's break this down here. We have the full moon in Virgo, right? And everybody knows Virgo traits are kind of like the perfectionist, or somebody that's really meticulous and detail oriented, and all of those tropes that come along with Virgo. So you have a full moon in Virgo that is really, trying to get at those kinds of things, that perfection. And we're talking about a moon that is waxing to its fullest. So there may be some sense around it's really important, or this is a moment where things are standing out, or even like the feminine archetype is really, really queenly and kind of exposed. It's like the pregnant person who is like weeks away from giving birth, and the belly is really round and visible. There's something really visible about this, maybe something really public about this, and it's like, I got to get it right. I really want to help, I really want things to turn out and be perfect and be spot on. We're going to figure out all of the details. But here's the problem with the dispositor of the moon, Mercury, being burnt up under the beams in fall or depression, in contrariety or detriment. I mean, this is a Mercury that is just about as bad off as you could get. Again, when I say bad, I don't want you to feel bad if you have Mercury in Aquarius, in Pisces, but we're just saying that these are characteristics, ways to describe what Mercury is like in Pisces. But be that as it may, there is something that it's like I get this image of like wanting to prepare the perfect meal for everybody, and just being like, it's really important that you're just like, okay, I'm going to attempt this really amazing food for my family, and we're all getting together and everything has to be perfect. And then the execution just is botched and the food comes out burnt, right? We have Mercury burnt under the beams. And it may be just because the mental qualities are just a bit scatterbrained. It's hard to hold all of the details in your mind and be really, really, really like just, what's the word? Like just, like a steel trap on all of the details. You ever notice sometimes you just feel like your mind is just so clear and everything's, it's like you could solve an equation or something. This is hard for Mercury to do that right now. So it's hard to solve the equation a little bit because Mercury is more in the body, more in the senses, more in the emotions, and burnt to boot under the sun. So there may be a pressure from an important person in your life to get it right, or to do something that is bringing pressure and anxiety down on you. So this could be that Virgo anxiety that comes through, or something like that. But it's like you could be anxious, scatterbrained, or your judgment could simply somehow just be off. It's just a little bit harder to be analytical right now, I think, with Mercury and Pisces. Not that it can't be done, but it's done in a different way here. So the execution might be hard to come out the way you want it to. Sometimes a Virgo full moon can be very helpful and amiable. That is one thing that with the dispositor Mercury in Pisces, even though Mercury's burnt up, there's a bit more of Mercury in the empathetic, graceful forgiveness kind of quality that both Virgo and Pisces share. As they have that kind of, sometimes they have that real grace, they have that forgiveness and helpfulness and empathy that comes along with that. So this could also be a time where there is some healing through those more empathetic ways of just being able to forgive somebody or something like that. And maybe it has to do with things of the family that are important as represented by the full moon or something like that. So it's not all bad. But I think that the main theme here, put into as few as words as possible, is like execution difficult, things more graceful or helpful or forgiving probably work out a little bit better. So that is what I have for today. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Next week, we have, what do we've got next week going on? Oh, we've got the sun is moving really close to Saturn in the sign of Pisces. So we're going to get this sun conjunct Saturn energy that comes through next week. And of course, probably a few more aspects that are coming in. So come back next week and we'll do another episode number 25 it'll be. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Hope you guys have a great week. Let me know in the comments how you liked the video and any astrology that you noticed, especially if you have your own themes or if they match some of the themes we talked about today. And I hope you guys have a great week. See you for now.